Hit record. Lovely. The session will be recorded. If you do not wish to be a part of the recording, you can not turn on your camera, not share your name and identifying information over the chat. Um, Aside from that, we also have sign language interpreters and other forms of interpretation, including live transcription to ensure accessibility for all attendees today. If you require this sort of support, please follow the directions that Caitlin will put in chat to pin your preferred sign language interpreter to your screen so that you can see them alongside all of the other speakers today. As I'll quickly walk you guys through the steps as well. Just hover over the sign language interpreter's video, click on the three dots that you see on the top right, and then click on pin video. That will make sure that it's the sign language interpreter is pinned to your screen. To access live transcription, you can click on the three dots at the bottom of the screen, click on live transcription and then choose show subtitle. It will show you the full transcript live as the conversation continues. You can also click on interpretation if you want live Spanish interpretation. The instructions to do this are also on chat, so feel free to look for Caitlin's message and follow the instructions followed there. If you're facing any issues in accessing and participating in this webinar fully, please put it on chat and our team will do our best to acknowledge and address your problem. But all right, I think those were the major things I wanted to cover. With that, I officially welcome all of you to the first webinar of the Youth-Led Movement Building Series. Ooh. Insert applause. Today, we will be exploring the origins and architecture of youth-led movements. There's a lot to cover and a lot of stories to be shared and learned. My name is Faiza Arshad. I'm one of the co-creators and now consultants of the For Youth by Youth initiative. There we empower young leaders to have impact in their communities. I am honored, incredibly, incredibly honored to be your facilitator for today. I will give you a quick rundown of what we will be covering. We'll start off with a grounding of our discussion to ensure that we're all thinking about the same themes and concepts throughout our conversation. Then we will meet our speakers. And we will ask them questions. And when I say we will ask them questions, I mean we as a collective. You guys will ask your questions on chat, and I will ask some questions that I've prepared earlier on. Then after that wonderful, enriching discussion on their movement building journey, we will have 15 minutes where the speakers will share their own resources or talk about their movements in more depth directly to the audience. We will then have a final few minutes of reflecting and summarizing everything that we learned, and then we'll conclude the first session of the webinar. That's all that we'll cover today. I hope that sounds as exciting to you as it does to me. I'm seeing lots of love in the chat, but thank you, and thank you so much for that. I'm not able to read all of it, but it's very encouraging. All right, let's start with the first part of this. Let's take a moment to ground ourselves. We're going to learn about movement building. We're going to learn about two incredible movements from the movement creators themselves, but we first need to understand why all of this is important. Why does building a movement matter? Why does learning how to build a movement matter, especially in this day and age? And to do that, I have the perfect person. She's built multiple movements herself. She's the executive director of the Talwan Network of Engaged Universities. She brings a bold, status quo challenging perspective on how youth-led movements grow, evolve, and sustain themselves. And I did not, and I don't make that up because I've had multiple conversations with her, and she is exactly the kind of person she portrays herself to be. Please welcome Dr. Fun, aka Dr. Lurleen Hoyt, to ground this session.
Dr. Fun in the house. Thank you, Faiza, for all that you are and for everything that you do. That was quite a lovely introduction. I hope I can live up to the hype. Welcome, welcome, everyone. We are gathered today not just to discuss theories of change. We're here to learn from one another. We're here to build lasting relationships. And perhaps most importantly, we're here to define a path forward. My name is Lorleen Hoyt. I'm the executive director of the Tower Network, and the Tower Network is a growing global coalition of more than 450 engaged universities in 93 countries around the world. And we've been building this civic infrastructure for more than 20 years. We work with university presidents, vice chancellors, rectors, as well as faculty and students and staff and their community partners. And what binds us together is our steadfast commitment to civic engagement and social responsibility. We take action around the world in different communities to address pressing problems like disease and famine and climate change. And something that I hear often from all corners of the world is that the world is on fire. And it's true. We can all feel it, and it can feel overwhelming. However, drum roll, let us remember that historically universities have served as the fertile soil for social movements. And university students have really been, the conscious leaders who have raised awareness, raised their voices, and have ignited these different sparks. And we see this legacy of action in movements like Fees Must Fall in South Africa, where what began as a protest against tuition hikes at one university rapidly evolved into the decolonization of higher education throughout the country. That's a very powerful example and model for us to follow and learn from. Similarly, the Fridays for Future climate strikes have mobilized millions of people. Those young leaders use digital platforms to transform individual concerns into a political force that crosses borders. So one thing for us to keep in mind is that these movements are effective because they are decentralized and they are digitally fluent. Um, and yet, at the same time, they face a strategic challenge. How do they maintain momentum? And how do they keep the flames burning instead of letting the fire die down? And that's why we are together today. This is when and where our collective role becomes strategic. I think that as a global coalition of engaged universities, the Tower Network is uniquely positioned to function as a vital civic infrastructure. We can convene people, convene movements, and provide a space where we can all leverage our shared resources. So this is a big moment, perhaps in history, so mark your calendars. And as we begin this three-part series, we're going to move from being spectators of the smoke, and we're going to become architects of the fire. So thank you for showing up for the revolution. And thank you so much, Faiza, for your stellar leadership. Back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Fun, aka Lorleen Hoyt. The most influential movements have always been youth-led. And today, and in the next two sessions in this webinar series, we will learn to move from spectating to architecting our own movements. And that is powerful. I hope that helps all of us understand a little bit about why we're here today and what kind of topics and concepts we need to focus on as the discussions evolve with our lovely youth leaders. Thank you so much. All right, it is now time to meet our speakers, our movement leaders that we will be learning from today. Allow me to quickly introduce them. Our first speaker for today is Hilda Flavia Nakabuye. She is an Ugandan climate activist and farmer who founded the Fridays for Future movement. I'm sure her name itself enlighten something in you, ignite something in you. When I first heard about Hilda, I was very young in college, and it is an honor to be with here today. Let me share a bit more about Hilda. Driven by her firsthand experience with climate change, she's been a powerful voice for environmental justice, gender equality, and racial diversity. From protecting Lake Victoria to opposing fossil fuels, her work has helped mobilize one of Africa's largest youth climate movements. Her impact has reached global stages. Um, uh, th- this is incredible that I'm talking to Hilda, but from major climate summits like the Conference of Parties, to collaborations like the Climate Book, earning her international recognition and awards, please give a warm welcome in the chat with reactions to Hilda. Hello, Hilda. I'll quickly introduce our second speaker. There's so much love for you, Hilda. I hope you feel it through the virtual screen. Um, But all right, let's meet our second speaker. Our second speaker today is Rahildaris Marchena. She is a Venezuelan animator, digital artist, and youth advocate, currently based in Spain with lived experience of forced displacement. As a DAFI scholar in digital animation, she brings together creativity and advocacy to push for equitable access to education for refugee and displaced youth. She's part of the leadership at the Tertiary Refugee Student Network and actively contributes to the Global Refugee Youth Network. Through her storytelling and art, she creates space for expression while challenging barriers to education, grounded in the belief that education is a powerful tool for dignity, agency, and lasting change. Please also give her a warm welcome. Welcome, Rahil. I hope you also feel the love from our students here today. Last but not the least, I would like to welcome our third speaker, Caitlin. She is a senior administrator at the Telwar Network, and today she is going to be the voice of the audience. What that means is that while the session is running and we're having engaging conversation with Hilda and Rahil, she will scan the chat for any questions and input, thoughts, and concerns that you have that are relevant to the ongoing discussion and reflect your voice into the conversation to make it more enriching. Like I said today's not about passive listening, and Caitlin is going to help us make sure that we learn from you as much as you guys learn from the speakers today. Please give Caitlin love as well for taking on this vital role. All right. All right. All right. Can we pin Caitlin as well?
Sure, thank you. I can pin myself.
All right. All right. Okay, great. Hilda, Rahil, Caitlin, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Hilda and Rahil, I gave a very formal introduction of both of you, but I'm sure all of us would love to hear about yourself from you guys. So can you tell us, please, who are you, what do you do, and why do you do it? And I'm going to start with Rahil.
Thank you so much. First, I just have to say that it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really happy that seeing all the reactions and all the love from the audience and all the diversity. So, as you mentioned, my name is Hilda Marchena. I'm a refugee advocate, also a storyteller, a youth leader, and I'm still a student in Spain. I think maybe I can start saying that my work is really rooted with both lived experience and also I've been working with refugee students and refugees in general. Um, Everything has started on all this passion because I was a refugee student myself before. Um, I arrived to Mexico when I was around 19 years old, and one of my biggest dreams was like to start education, like to start my degree, as you mentioned, is digital animation. And this is really connected and a little bit weird because sometimes people ask me, how do you connect like art, storytelling, and all this with advocacy? But I feel it's really simple because both of them are way to express and also ways to advocate itself. So all this work started from this because being a refugee, it's something quite hard, but being a student at the same time have these strengths. So being a refugee student, it have kind of like few more challenges. So I think one of the biggest challenges was to start getting into education system, and after that, finding a way to continue in it, and also trying to involve more refugee students into the education system in Mexico. So um, through the connection with UNHCR in the offices, trying to do some more volunteer work, I noticed that I was not the only one that wanted to get more refugee students or more young people into the education system in Mexico. So I also like to having more information with them or asking to them what I can do. And from this, we get into the TAFE scholarship system and other networks or young people that were like having the same as like what we can do to have more young people into education system, because through some volunteer opportunities or some work around the country, we noticed that most of the young people actually wanted to ask the access to education, but they don't know how to get in. And other were like involved in the education system, but also were having other challenges like connecting with young people, etc. So from there, like the passion itself connected, and we start this beautiful movement. I will say, connecting with other young people in other countries. So that was like a quite long and short introduction about how I get involved into this. But basically, it was a kind of a connection between my passion or like my hopes to get into education system, the passion of advocate and support other students, and also the way to transform my other passion related to arts into a tool of advocacy. So as I would say that I use storytelling especially for visual and a tool for advocacy, but because I feel like it have like this strong connection, and it's a way you can share stories in a more powerful way. And also if you mix it with art, you feel that you can connect directly with another side of people. You can go directly to the heart. And also, I'm connected with other organizations that really like Green, that wants to a part of advocate for young people, giving the tools and the mechanism, the funding or the support so they can thrive in life. Yeah, that's kind of an introduction of who I am, why I'm doing what I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahil. It's interesting that you said people ask you about the connection between art and advocacy, because in my mind, has always been political and a statement and such a deep part of advocacy. But we'll get into more of that later. I want to pass it on to Hilda. Hilda, who are you? What do you do? And why do you do it?
Hi everyone. My name is Hilda Flavia Nakabuye. I'm a climate, gender, and environmental rights activist from Uganda. Well, I do what I do because of my personal experience with the climate crisis. I um, I come from a village, from a region that has been severely affected by the climate crisis, from a farmer's village in the basin of Lake Victoria in Uganda. During my childhood, I observed the impacts of the climate crisis in my home when the rainfalls intensified to the extent that the streets were submerged with water, rendering roads impassable, and I was unable to go to school. I remember vividly my father and my grandmother reassuring me, saying that these rains will subside and the situation will turn back to normal. However, 3 days later, we encountered similar intense rainstorms, resulting in my absentia from school again. I remember questioning my grandmother what was happening to us. And she said that we are cursed by the gods. And I asked her why were we cursed by the gods, and she didn't have an answer for that. And by that time, I was young and I was overcome with fear about the plight that my family was facing. our farm, which was our only source of income, was submerged in the rains, and everything was, washed away with the rain. So we lost a lot of our crops. And that year we didn't have any sales at all. We didn't have enough money. We didn't have food. So my grandmother sold part of our land and the animals that we are rearing so that she could get money to buy us food and take care of us. But with each and every other passing year, the rainfalls have intensified even as I speak. And these rainfalls have led to widespread flooding in the areas. And also it has affected, these weather patterns have also affected the dry season. So we have longer dry seasons and shorter wet seasons here in Uganda. However, when I encountered the word climate change, it was during a school dialogue at my university. And I learned that the curse my grandmother was talking about growing up had a name. And that name was climate change. So as a student at the university, I decided that I need to do something about this curse, this climate change. And I founded Fridays for Future Uganda. It is a youth-led movement driving climate justice and protecting young climate defenders. Because the situation in Uganda is we have a repressed civic space as environmental defenders. So it's very important that the safety of activists or people who are fighting on the front lines for the well-being of other people are protected. Uganda experiences rising climate disasters like floods, droughts, biodiversity loss, and an increasingly restricted civic space. So Fridays for Future Uganda combines climate education, grassroots advocacy, and defender protection. Our programs are co-designed with communities, ensuring that the solutions we give are locally relevant and owned. And I think I can stop there for now, then I'll share more later. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilda. I remember studying about your work when I was in college and how climate action movements historically do not represent the people directly affected by climate action and how your work has played such a pivotal role in changing that. Now, thank you both for introducing yourselves. I'm curious that I know both of you have had lived experiences that directly shape your advocacy and the work that you do today. I'm curious who you are beyond your work, and is it sometimes difficult or all the time difficult to separate you from the cause that you have committed to work for? I'm curious to hear about that. Anyone can take the stand to answer it.
I can go.
Sure.
Well, I am, I identify as a woman. She, her are my pronouns. And I am a lover of a happy life. I love water. I love forests. I love to live around nature. And that is one of the reasons as to why I fight for it. But on the other side, as a woman, I also love a good sleep. Yeah. I'm the kind that can miss a party just to sleep. So, yeah, it's quite boring, but that's me. And well, it wasn't very easy to speak up as a woman because starting my activism, I was always told that I'm a young girl and there's nothing that I can add to the community, more like looking down on a girl child. And this is very common in our culture because they do not expect girls to have any knowledge or information about anything around the world. They expect girls to be in the kitchen, cooking, doing house chores and the like. So I experienced a lot of backlash in my work. I still do, but I have a vision which I look up to that helps me stay in line, and also a network of community that I work with that keep empowering me and pushing me to do more and to always stay focused on my vision. Thank you, Faiza. I hope that answers what you asked.
Hilda, I would say that I really connect with what you said because I'm also will skip a party to get a sleep. So that's not totally boring. I really resonate with that. Yeah. And I don't really get what you're saying also in terms of struggling to be a speak outside being a woman. Because I think this also connect with the question that you shared, Faisal. I think a part of the movement. Yep. Yes, you mentioned that like it's all like our experience is really connected with what we're doing. I feel like that's like the super push that given to me. Like before being a refugee, I didn't know that there were refugees or all what is happening all around the world. But a part of everything that is related to work, who I am. I think I'm a really great artist. I really love art. I really like to express myself through any way of art. I really love cats. And one of the things that I really like to do is to help. I don't know. I feel like the feeling you get after you see that someone is growing through your support or just a little act of help can change someone's life. I feel really grateful about that feeling. So I think I'm someone that it's really likes seeing people to thrive, and seeing people like to go beyond if you support them. I'm really passionate about, I know I'm mentioning this a lot, but I'm really passionate about arts. And I think I go back to your question when you said like why people were asking me how you connect both sides. It's like it's so sad, but at the same time so strong to think that in nowadays people used to think that artists like or digital animators or people that is working with design cannot support the movement around the world or cannot do something for the world. And that's so sad because, as you mentioned, art it's really connected, and all this digital stuff is like the evolution of art. I like to call it modern art, and this actually support to change a narrative, to change the way we see the world, and also to give visualization to what is actually happening in the world. So people used to ask me, how do you connect those both realities? And I would just reply, we have been doing this since the human exists. We have been showing the world through art what are we doing, or how we can support others, etc. So I don't see why people cannot connect digital animation or art or design with humanitarian work. So I think that question always comes because it's like misunderstanding of how both things can be connected. But I know that we this generation like is trying hard to show it. But yeah, I think I can just leave it like that. But I think about a part of humanitarian, mostly an artist and someone that really love to see um, diversity and culture and enjoy conversations.
Thank you, Rahil. I feel obligated to mention that I also will say no to a party to stay home. And I think that's a common theme among all of us today. I know Caitlin is also just like us there, so I think all of us are on the same boat there. Caitlin flagged that it is Earth Day today, which is I think such a beautiful coincidence. And I know that Lorraine doesn't believe in coincidences. It's probably something magical, something a sign of what a great conversation this already is and is going to be. But I'm curious, both of you obviously had lived experiences that shaped your advocacy and the work that you do. But I'm curious about if there's a specific experience or moment or opportunity that triggered your triggered you to go from spectating and viewing this issue to taking action and turning it into a movement? When did you go from being frustrated and feeling at a loss of what to do to, okay, no, I'm going to do something about this, and here's exactly what I'm going to do? Is there like a specific turning point? Was there a series of events? I'm curious about that.
Okay. Well, on my side, I learned about climate change. So maybe I take you back a little bit. So I was at the university in my first year, and I was in my hostel, very hungry. And then I told a friend of mine, I'm really hungry. I don't have money to come to the university today. I don't have food. I don't have energy. So he told me, there's this dialogue that is going to happen. It's about climate change, and they will have free food. So I was like, I'm up for free food. So I went into the dialogue. And then this turned out to be my turning point. I had gone for food, but then I got more than food. I got knowledge. I learned about climate change vividly for the first time. And during the student dialogue, the speaker talked about the climate crisis, of course, explained how it comes, how it affects us, and everything about the climate crisis. So he also mentioned that very few people know about climate change, and even these few people that know about it are not willing to share or to talk about it with other people. So the awareness is just not fast enough for the community to know about it. And during the speaker's sharing, I kept looking back to my life growing up and what we experienced on our farm, the heavy rains that I told you about, how our crops, our garden was flooded, roads were submerged, how I missed school for months because we couldn't raise enough money for my tuition. So these were all triggers in my life, and I kept thinking about how selfish one can be with this climate information and not tell other people about it. So I took it upon myself. I promised myself that I will do something about it. And I promise that I will create awareness so that more and more people know about the climate crisis so that they can fight for it. So that they can fight for climate justice. And I did that. I informed many people as much as I could about the climate crisis and also mobilized many people to join me. Turning point when the speaker was speaking about the climate crisis and it hit, my experience I passed through growing up. So I said I would not let other people pass through the same experience I passed through growing up, missing school, missing food, living under a curse that was climate change. So yeah, thank you.
I think on my side, was really tricky because, as you mentioned, it started with the frustration, because before I was getting to university, I didn't know how to get into the university, and as I mentioned before, getting into the system as a refugee, it's quite challenging because there is like not a specification in most of the universities, especially in Latin America, of how to treat like I could say like the identifications or all the paperwork that you usually have to go through as a normal student. Because for refugees, we have like different IDs and maybe, or like, for example, or certification of birth, it's like not verified, or it doesn't combine with the one from the uh, to the country we are studying in. So go through all the challenges one by one. It was like so frustrating. And also when the questions and questions and questions comes, and basically sometimes some people could deny you to get into the education system just because there is just one paper that is missing. So after all of this, I noticed that I was the only refugee student in the whole university. It was um, it was quite a weird experience because this I feel this is something that no one should feel, but I was feeling uh, not sad, but quite shy to mention that I was a refugee. So I tried to avoid that or to mention that I was a refugee at all point. I don't feel that that's correct because it's something it's a situation where you that it's not created by you. It's something that is happening all around the world and should be normalized to other people to understand that there is a status called refugee and what it comes with that. So through all this experience, once I was feeling like a bit frustrating about to getting into the education, like to creating my group or like socializing, etc. So one time, I remember the UNHCR organized kind of a gathering with all young people that was on the system, and I was invited. I was a little shy to go, but then I went, and then I connect with different young people. None of them were students yet, but once one of them like asked me, "Oh, but what are you doing here?" And I said, "Oh, I just started to studying." And he was like, "You start to study? I'm trying to get it, but anytime I'm trying, I get denied because of this or this." And I started like to advising this girl and tell them, no, you can have my phone and we can just connect and I can help you with the documentation and you can get in and I can get you in touch with my teachers also. And she was like, oh, thank you so much. She was like so amazed. And I think at this specific point, I was like, oh, wow, it feels so nice. And I feel so happy that she's going to get it. And after she got it, and I think in that specific point, I decided I want to keep doing this. And after that, it was more tricky because I had to connect with other people from UNHCR to see who wants to get it, like start in the university. I can support them just like with some advice. And after that, I got connected with the TRSM movement, etc. And I know I will explain more later, but basically I feel that this is like the starting point. The first time I was able to actually connect someone with the system through my experience.
Thank you, Rahil. I was taking notes as you guys were speaking, and just to have a good summary for our attendees today. And it seems like both of you started from a place of number one, observing something that's happening that shouldn't be the way that it is, and telling people about it. It is often when you look into a lot of movements, it's very interesting to me that majority of them start by people need to know. People need to know that this is happening and this is a problem. And the second step both of you took is the noble action of trying to help one other person. Rahil, you mentioned that it started from a person that was shocked that you were able to get in and asking you about the process. And Hilda as well, you talked about how you didn't want other people to go through what was happening. Those two things what I'm hearing is that that's the turning point, that's what started it. Thank you both for sharing. Caitlin, before I pose the next question, is there anything in chat that you'd like to add to the conversation?
I think just to build on that point, we're talking about kind of what kinds of strengths people bring to the table that are not always looked at as a typical strength of movement making or activism. Um, and so people being able to communicate and make those connections, being talkative, maybe they were taught not to do that in school because they were, um, got in trouble, kamocho. um, being taught seemed as a back chatter, but now like that ability to relate and speak to one another is a strength. And I think that just goes to Hilda's point of reaching out and talking to people, and Rahil kind of um, being vulnerable and reaching out to people as well, and kind of standing in your identity and sharing it. And then just the idea of like bringing people together through means that you might not have thought of, like um, ha having food at an event can bring people in that might not have always seen themselves as being part of that, or even able to, join in on that conversation. So that's kind of what's going on in our chat world.
Thanks, Caitlin. The chat overall is very active, so thank you for summarizing some of the input there. It is definitely worth noting that if you have nothing and you still want to have impact, you have your voice, and you have your immediate community, so you can start there and move on there. I think I'm going to pose the next question. I think we lost Hilda, but Rahil, I would love to hear your answer as we wait for her to join back. Can you tell us a little bit about how your work, your movement is structured right now, and how do you manage decentralized action? Your thoughts on that?
Thank you. I think one of the things that also I missed to mention is like DRSN, it's born from this gap, and I would like to mention that most of my colleagues have kind of similar experience than me. And please give me 1 second because I'm lacking of connection. Just give me 1 second to connect this and don't stop.
All right, no worries. I'll just repeat the question for everyone here, just to make sure that we all understand what we're discussing about right now. So the question I posed is, how is your movement structured right now? And how do you manage decentralized action? Rahila, are you back?
Yes, I'm back. I was just worried that this disconnect.
No worries.
Yeah, so I was mentioning that most of my colleagues in TRSN, of the global colleagues, mentioned that they evaluated and they found this same gap, that maybe the opportunity was there, like to get into the education system, but there was lack of knowledge and there was lack of on a specific office or system that could support you to get into education system or could support you through the education system. We noticed that there was funding opportunities or like scholarship opportunities that could be available for us as refugees in a foreign country. But there was not information actually how to get them, or some of them were available once you get into the education system. So there was this like huge gap of how I get there and on how after getting there, how I get to these all opportunities or this of the movement. So that's how basically we decide to start like just filling that gap with information. And so coming back to your question, I think what makes TRSN works and makes it unique is like we are not a centralized organization. It is like a youth-led ecosystem, and it could looks a little bit centralized, but at the same time, we each of us have like kind of a group of people in different regions working in for TRSN. So TRSN is like a little, I will explain like this. It's like a little bubble that compose most of the refugee youth leaders. Each of us represents one region, and within that region, we have different groups working in that region. So from the leadership group, we basically what we do, it's just sharing what are the realities of each of the regions so we can create projects that can cover most of them, or we can create a unique project that can be readapted for all that in all of these contexts. So after that, I would say bubble of youth leadership, when we create the initiatives, the projects, or the ideas that we want to develop, we go to the regionals where we have connections with the office from, could be UNHCR or other organizations working with refugees. And most the connection is to find funding and also to find other young people that actually wants to access education so we can easily access to them. So we send that project or idea to the regional offices, and then we have there the colleagues that can readapt this project, and it could be like duplicated into the region. So for example, there is a project called Lost Horizons that was aiming to um, fill the gap of misunderstanding or not finding information how to access the education system, specifically in Mexico. And this one is basically giving them the tools to prepare for the initial exams, and giving like the tutors for getting the exam, and also how to prepare the documentation for school. So this project was created at the global, the global groups. Like we decide we have to support refugees before starting the education system. Okay, then it goes to Mexico. They did this all this system or carrying the tutorship, etc. And then we saw that we lack of how we can duplicate this in all the regions. So we started applying for funding to the Global Refugee Network and other funding opportunities, to provide with a little small funding to the other regions. For example, in Mexico, we start in Mexico City, and after that, we went to Aguascalientes and Monterrey and other states of Mexico. So this one with this small funding could like duplicate and give opportunity to other students. So basically, this is how we are structured. We have the major group, then that generates ideas. That major groups send the idea or the initiative to the regional groups that also have one of us involved in there. And with this, we explain the idea, the environment, etc. We readapt the initiative and send to the different community for young people that we have in the region. But also sometimes when there is lack of funding or that when there is lack um, of understanding, we go to U, UNHCR or other organizations that have connections in the ground that can support us to get more involved with young people and understand more the context that we can address.
Thank you, Rahil, for that overview. I have a couple of follow-up questions based on what you said. I'm curious, you described such a wide network and subsections of your movement. Can you tell us a little bit about what you found to be the most successful way to gain trust when it comes to getting people involved within your movement or partnerships that might fund or support you in different ways? How do you approach those conversations and have the wide network that you do right now?
So I love this question because we recently we did a restructure of the organization because the organization, we felt that we were doing too much and we were not really focused on what we want to do. So we were mostly focused on advocacy and participating in panels, participating in high level events and speaking up. But at the same time, we're seeing that the actual gap that we want to cover, that is, we are part of the pledge 15 by 30, that's 15% of the refugee students by the 2030, because right now we are 9%. We just need like 6% more to achieve the goal, and we hope that it goes beyond. But when we notice that just like the big organization, well, yeah, if I can call it like that, the big organizations were the ones doing mostly of the work, and we see that we actually need to support in a different way. That's where we notice that just enough of this creating these leader movements could support in knowledge while we are still building TRSN or building the structure of TRSN. So how we create like these organizations to create on us or bring more volunteer people to work with us is like with small projects. We saw that we were managing a lot of stuff and was like not really easy to manage, and we were like trying to do too much. So we decided just to start focusing in one region. We started with Latin America because we saw that that was one of the strongest group. We started in Latin America. We started first applying with one project to one funding through Green to Global Refugee Network, and through this developing just in a small city and getting the volunteers from the UNHCR together with the UNHCR support, mentioning that what was the scope of the work, what were we gonna do, and also we managed to get more support from other former students that already knew about TRSN. And with this, we start like to building a little bit like bigger organization. But basically, we noticed that it was huge work. It was too much things to do in different regions. So we decided just to focus for 1 year, that was in 2025, in one small project. So we can here create a strong project and create a strong view, get our first funding. That was our first like a small funding in that region. And from that, creating the reports, etc., to building that TRSN is this and this is all work. And right now we're like in the restructuring a little bit more the organization and actually going from a network to a real organization, being registered, etc. And I think UNHCR have had a really like huge influence in TRSN because it was first, we were all the students connected by them. And it doesn't mean that TRSN is all just managed by UNHCR, but it means that they support us to build together as a group. But also when it's time to request funding or to have an opportunity to participate in a panel, etc., we sometimes request the support from UNHCR or could be another organization we have worked with to be involved in this. We feel that networking have helped us a lot into getting into the system.
Thank you, Rahil. That was very insightful. And I'm sure that our For Youth by Youth learners have extracted a lot of information from that. But just to reflect what you said in a short way, I would say that you focused on one problem and one region to make sure that you came up with systems and processes that could work as a machine in that specific region. And then you decided to expand, which has helped keep the organization in place. Hilda, welcome back. Just to quickly catch you up, Rahil just shared about the organization of her movement and how she started out and got partners and movement members involved within her work. I'm curious to hear from you as well. Can you tell us a little bit about how Fridays for Future is structured as a functioning organization, and how do you gain trust from partners and get people involved within your movement to contribute?
Well, thank you for sharing. Well, Fridays for Future Uganda really is structured. We are girl-led, women-led, and youth-led, and everyone, most of the people that are in the decision making are between 18 and 35 years of age. And the decisions that we make, the projects that we make, stem from the communities that we work with. And the projects that we start, they all come from the communities that we work with. And the community comes up with a solution that they want to do, and then we see how we can translate that into a project, and then we work together to deliver implement that project. And then we also, as youth, we work with mentors who help us understand or train us or, support the organization's growth in an expertise way, I would say, because there are many youth organizations in the country, and many of them don't even make it to their first or second birthday. But if you have someone who is already in the network and is used to the same trail, they can help you, reach further. We've also built a network which we leverage on, and that network is with the communities, is with the schools that we work with, and this network is built on trust-based, because we've done projects together, so it helps us get the trust from different groups of people or communities that even when we don't have funding for a project, but the community needs it, we can look out for resources, or the community themselves can find the resources for this project or for this solution, or even find ways of how we can, achieve or implement that project. And then the other thing is, of course, presentation. We share our work on social media platforms, which creates awareness. Other people, donors, funders or even other organizations that are in the same line get to see our work and then invite us for events or opportunities where we can even share more broadly about our work. So we leverage on social media, digital tools to share the work that we have to broader communities. And also, when it comes to communities, we also translate the messages into understandable languages. For example, many of the reports that are being produced by, for example, from the Conference of Parties, the declarations that are being made are always in text and with very many pages. So some people cannot understand that. So we find ways of breaking down this information that a layman person in my country can understand, like a farmer can understand. Also, we also translate this into visuals that people can understand. So if I am not so much of a text person, at least when I see a visual, I can understand what you are trying to communicate. So we also do that. We also work with language translations where when we visit a community, we make sure that we speak the same language. But also before we go out to a community, we first understand what problem or challenge the community is facing, a little research background, how the community was formed, how the leadership is, why do these challenges happen, what has the community done. So we approach the community with a little bit of background of why they have this challenge. And of course, if you're approaching a person if you're approaching a person of interest, you must know something about them. For example, you must know a little bit of history about them. So to give you leverage or to pull the attention of the person that you are talking to. So we first make a little research, and also the solutions that we get from these communities are exactly what we've heard from the research, or something that has been done but maybe failed because of blah, blah, blah. So we find out why it failed and how we can make it together, how best we can, approach this situation. So that is what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilda. It's interesting that both you and Rahil mentioned networking as a huge part of spreading the movement and gaining support from both partners and movement members. And the other thing I noticed is your emphasis on visual and easy to follow language when it comes to spreading your movement, which I think is very, very important. I saw this question in the chat, and I'm also curious myself. In terms of decision making, how does that function in both of your movements, um, especially when you have to keep the momentum going and make sure that everyone's on the same page in terms of direction? So, is there any system, any process for effective decision making in your organizations? This time, Hilda, I'll start with you.
Well, the easiest process in decision making is building trust, because if there is trust, it makes decision making easy. And one thing that I have learned in Uganda, okay, this is a joke, but it's a true joke. Every person who comes to Uganda, most of the people who come to Uganda say it, that it's never too urgent. So life here in Uganda is never too urgent, like that meeting is never too urgent. Well, it's a bad joke, but in terms of decision making, it's never too urgent for us to make a decision without participation from the people who are facing the problem. So in this case, if a decision has to be made, it has to be from the people who face the challenge, who are bearing the brunt, because that is where we get the real solution. it would not make sense if we rush into a decision that will not benefit the community. So it will put us back to zero. So we often have to hear from the people who are experiencing this. What is their say? What do they want? What do they think? How best can we do this? Well, we can't do it with one of the sides, with one party left on the sidelines. We've seen that this process of, making rash decisions does not work, especially now with it's very evident with the COP, the Conference of Parties, which happens every other year. When you look at the COP presidency, you find that one of the genders is left on the sidelines. And we think that this is one of the reasons as to why the solutions, the climate solutions, are being delayed, because then you don't hear from the gender that is mostly affected by the climate crisis, because according to the UN, 80% of people affected by the climate crisis are women and children. And when you look at the processes, the COP presidency, and the picture, that picture they put out on the first day, it's all men, 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 men. So it shows that there are no women and there are no children who are the real bearers of the climate crisis. In this case, these people can draw from their experiences to offer solutions that will help us um, navigate the climate crisis. Yeah, so that is my point. Thank you.
Really resonate with what you just shared at the last part, Hilda. It's like there's always this thing that the decisions are made without us, but about us. And also, there's something that we really notice as a huge gap in TRSN and also other refugee organizations. And most of the projects to support refugee people are built without refugee people. And that this is like the huge mistake because when you don't involve the person that is actually affected, the project will not actually cover most of the issues that are affecting this community. So I really resonate with what you just shared. And I think for TRSN, we have a governance structure. I think I mentioned a little bit at the beginning, but this governance structure is we have the global leaders, then the regional leaders, and then the local leaders. That how is this working? Basically, most of the regional leaders are also involved in the global leadership. Um, the global leadership, they are all refugee students or former students. And how we take the decisions is that we both would bring an issue or the topic that we want to discuss to the table, and we all have to vote about it, and we all have to discuss about the specific project, priority, or thing that we want to address. Um, in the governance we have a president and also we have someone in charge of communications, etc. But at the same time we all have opportunity to speak up, and there is no just one person taking the decision, because for take a decision about a project or a solution, we all have to um, think about our context depending on our region, and also see if that specific idea or thing that we are discussing will affect and how we're going to affect in different ways or community or region. So other thing is some of the decisions that are taken in the global leadership group could not be considered for the regionals if it's not real adapted, or if it's of that specific thing is not needed in that specific region. Or the regional teams can also suggest or can also share that they are taking ABCD decision because of the context of the country. So basically what we do is not to we not just centralize the power of decision in one person in one of the groups. We discuss all decisions that needs to be taken or all the projects that needs to be considered, so we can equally support each of the context regions, and we can understand what is actually happened in each of the groups. Yeah.
That makes so much sense. Bringing people with lived experience, relevant lived experience into the movement, giving them the space to objectively speak about what their specific needs are, and being grounded in the same objective helps you guys maintain momentum despite not having centralized action. And I think that's a good reminder for everyone here because we are so used to systems and structures that do have centralized decision making and structures, but that there can be momentum and movement without that. Caitlin, is there anything from the chat that you'd like to reflect?
I just wanted to call out, Katharina had mentioned that she has a similar um, initiative to support refugees. I believe she's in South Africa. So just naming that, if folks want to learn more about her work in the network, it's called Life of Purpose, and it's supports refugees who are looking to get into university through that mentorship and support in terms of applying and then looking for scholarships. And then I wanted to also um, highlight Marie's comment, who has a project going on about drying, I believe it's fish, but it could also be used for other sources of food. And I think just looking at like um, small applications of change to kind of get at larger issues. The larger issue being food security and food loss. And I think that's a really interesting, tangible project to combat. Well, they said it, combating malnutrition. So, what are some other like small projects we can all think about that um, address the larger issues at play? I think those two examples really connect to what we're talking about in terms of building and connecting and really addressing issues on a really local community-centric scale and how that can build to the change at the more global level. So we have some great change makers in the room.
Thank you, Caitlin. And I do believe we're witnessing a global movement in the making with both of those movements and other movements of people in joining us today because, like Rahila and Hilda mentioned, both of their movements started small and with a very specific goal and then expanded and are what they are today. Now, that brings me to the final question of this session. No movement is without its challenges and failures and barriers. I was wondering if both of you could share something, a specific failure that may have shocked you and how you overcame it. And if nothing comes to mind, is there something specific that you're figuring out right now that is interesting and worth sharing with our audience today? Rahil, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I think the first that comes to my mind, and it's like the same that have been we have been dealing with this. I mentioned a little bit already, but it's like as a youth-led movement, always funding plays like a critical role, and having access to funding as TRSN have been always like really limited because we were like struggling on how to actually move ourselves because we were moving more in advocacy spaces, but individually, and we were like struggling in how to actually structure TRSN so we can all work and put all our minds together and then create a more significant project and goes beyond that advocacy but goes through like actually action in the ground. So from this we basically developed the governance structure and that helped us too much because from this we got with the major idea of getting the actual project, like a small project, develop that project, and from that we create a much better system to support refugees, especially in Latin America. So another thing is like lack of understanding the realities and also trying to do all at the same time without like a clear objective and a clear like focus. That was like our biggest mistake because yeah, we were doing stuff, but we were doing stuff but we were not recording. We were not having it in paper as like the better way to say it. And also most of us were like we know each other, but we were actually not connect with each other. So for example, with one colleague that I know that he's working in South Africa, or one colleague that is working in Uganda, but I'm actually not aware of what they are doing together with TRSN. So from this, what we ask is the having regular calls with us, know who is in the team, actually define who's the leadership team, and then define who are the members of the regional teams. And from this, we create, um, I would say, guides. I will not call it policy guide, but it's a guide for us for internal use, mentioning how many calls you have to attend, just to have a clear structure for the colleagues. And also we create like a smaller WhatsApp group mentioning our priorities, what we're gonna do. And also we are now on the process of creating an spreadsheet. We love spreadsheets, but this one specifically is for including all the work that you have been doing, specifically about CRSN and the action you have been doing. So for example, we work, as I mentioned, like globally, but now that I moved to Spain, I'm doing more connections with Spanish offices, and most of my colleagues were not aware. So what I'm doing is to include who I'm connecting with and what is the work I'm doing. So from this work, we can also take specific pieces that can be replicated in other regions. And in that way, TRSN can work smoothly and also with the same structure all around the world. Yeah, I think that's like our biggest failures and how we react to that.
Hilda.
Well, in my experience, something that really shocked me in my journey in the climate activism space is how there's very little knowledge about the climate crisis globally. Even in developed countries, there's still very little information about the climate crisis, especially in the public. Like the people are not exposed to this. And then another thing that really shocked me is my experience as a climate activist. And the first time I organized a climate strike, a climate protest in Uganda, when I was still at the university, the first climate strike I mobilized, which was the first global climate strike in the country, I mobilized about 100 people, and we were marching on the streets in Kampala. And halfway our action, we were approached by police and we were arrested. Apparently, there's some rules that you should follow when you are organizing such an event. It was the first time we were hearing about this, so we tried to work with the police to get a list of all these action points or things, documents that are needed for us to organize a safe climate protest. So my encounter with being arrested, it was the first time. So it was a very big shocker for me. And of course, we organized a second climate strike the next time. And we had all the documentations. We were ready for, whatever comes. And we thought it would be a success. But even though we were in the middle of the climate strike and we were stopped by police and we were arrested. So this was the second time I was being arrested. And we had the same issue back and then. We told them we had the papers, we had everything. So they literally just maybe wanted company in the prison. I don't know. But we had everything. And then for the third climate strike, this one I was very sure that we won't be arrested. I even went home. I picked up two of my siblings. One was 8 years, another was 10. I brought them to the march without my parents' permission, and they still arrested us with minors. So I asked the police officers, please, can you let me go? Can you let others go? Then you arrest me because I am the organizer. And he said no. So they detained them for about 8 hours. And this was the third time I was being arrested for speaking up for something that could be easily understood by the public because they are facing the same wrath as I am facing. But they never understood. So this a process of being arrested became natural to me in my line of work. So right now, I know that whether I have all the documentations or not, they will still arrest me. So I just have to look at what can I do when I am arrested, or what can I do to reduce the arrests. So that is why now we also have an activist defenders program in our work, so that in case of any arrests, which are very, very, very common in Uganda, at least we have standby lawyers. At least we have standby bail fees so that our activists get bail quickly. We have we have photocopies of their national IDs, which is needed if you have to get bail. And we also have like some funds, emergency funds for health, because sometimes when you are arrested in Uganda, you are like brutally beaten up by the police, so you can easily get wounds or, any kind of health problem. So we make sure that we have some funds in case activists are arrested and, brutally beaten. We have some funds to cater for this, health. And of course, when you pass through all these arrests, or even when if it's your first time to get arrested, you could get maybe traumatized or even mentally affected. So we offer psychosocial support for activists who pass through this same experience. So me being arrested while fighting for climate justice was a shocker in my work. So now I get to face it every other time.
Thank you, Hilda. Just to make sure that we're all drawing patterns and learning from both Hilda and Rahil, I would like to go through, summarize a little bit of what they said. Hilda talked about the failures of the system and how her and her movement tried really hard to make sure that they followed all the rules and did the paperwork, and it still failed. And instead of seeing that as a huge barrier, she then came up with other systems to make sure that even if they are arrested and even if something goes awry, there's processes and systems in place to help their movement. And Rahil mentioned about the issues of funding, which is a constant question that we as movement builders will think about and face. And she talked about how her and her team worked on projects and project buildings to acquire funds, and also the issues of making sure that you know the people in your movement and make sure that all of you have shared objectives and are aligned on where you're heading, so that when you do face barriers as a movement, you are still able to look at that shared goal and make decisions based on that. But wow, Hilda, I hope they stop arresting you. Wow, maybe it should be a world record at this point, and I'm sorry that that is the system that you're facing. But um, thank you so much, you guys, for that discussion. I know it went a little bit over time. So in the interest of time, I'm going to jump straight to you guys talking about either a resource that you want to share directly with the movement builders in the audience, or talking about your movement in detail. I want to give both of you, Rahil and Hilda, the option of either talking about it for 4 to 5 minutes or sending it on the chat, whichever you prefer. I know, Hilda, you have to go, so I want to start with you. Would you want to talk about your movement for 2 to 3 minutes and then share your resources over chat?
Okay. Is this where I get to share the presentation?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I will quickly share my screen so that
Rahil, for context, right as Hilda finishes, you can jump right in.
Okay, so I can share a screen right now.
Wait, we'll start with Hilda and then you can
Okay.
take over as soon as she's done.
Okay.
Yeah. No worries. Caitlin, in the meantime, can we put in the chat the sign up link for the next webinar for our students and also the survey? All right, Hilda, take it away.
Okay, so this is my story. I am a climate and environmental rights activist. I shared my first time learning about climate change was during a student dialogue that was organized at my university. So, how I first encountered climate change in reality and knowing about it was during this dialogue. And then that triggered me to start the Fridays for Future Uganda movement, which is now a youth organization which has grown to be one of Africa's largest youth movements and has also supported the startup of other organizations. This was my first strike outside my university, which was the environment, save our future. Uganda's temperatures are rising. Keep Mama Africa green. So this was my first climate strike that I organized, which, sorry about the connection issue. This was my first strike, which I organized, where we were arrested in the middle of this action. And then what Fridays for Future does is we do school outreaches. We reach out to schools, educate them about the climate crisis and what they can do basically to combat or to even what role they can play. As youth, as students, we also go down to communities to, create climate education or awareness with community engagements where we do lake cleanups or wetland cleanups or even community cleanups to protect and preserve our water bodies, our resources. We also joined global marches. This was a march in Paris, which was a climate march where I spoke about the climate crisis and what we are experiencing in Uganda. And since then, Fridays for Future has reached out to over 100,000 youth. We've reached out to over 200 schools and to 72 communities. We've organized 24 nationwide global marches. We've amplified many voices. We've empowered many young climate leaders. We've supported the startup of 5 youth-led organizations in Africa. That is in Kenya, Tanzania, Nigeria, South Africa, and Sierra Leone. Of course, there is a global imbalance where the global north pollutes and then the global south suffers the impacts of the climate crisis. And then I am also part of the activists that decampaign the East African crude oil pipeline. This is a pipeline that is expected to be built in Uganda. It will be 1,443 kilometers long. It will be the world's most longest heated crude oil pipeline to ever be built. And it will emits over 34.3 million metric tons of carbon a year. This project has already displaced hundreds of thousands of people and communities. Many of them haven't even yet been compensated. So one of my campaigns is the Stop ECOP campaign, which is online. We also have a website which you can visit. It's called stopecop.net. Where you can learn more about this pipeline. more of the actions from the global perspective and also from the communities that are fighting to stop this pipeline. My activism has gone global. I've been recognized and invited to speak at events such as the Conference of Parties. This was a youth panel at COP28 where I was invited to speak. I've also attended events such as COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh and many other COPs. I was invited at the United Nations General Assembly to speak about my work and climate change in general. I've also been invited. I was invited at the C40 World Mayors Summit to speak about climate change and also other conferences in line with the energy and climate. My work has been published by the BBC, by The Guardian, by Vogue, and other um, media media houses. Um, I've been featured in Time magazine. My first speech was featured in Time magazine, and this is only possible because I did not keep quiet about the climate crisis. I kept speaking up against the climate crisis. I've also featured in many documentaries such as Dear Future Children and Uncertainty Experts, among others. Our work as Fridays for Future Uganda has won us awards such as the French Prize Award, fighting for human rights and defenders' protection. We've also won the NGO of the Year Award, which was given by Astute Strategies and many others. And of course, we do not forget protecting the earth, which is our responsibility as humanity, and also empowering the next generation to rise up and take climate action in whatever thing that they do. Of course, there's a lot that you can do as an individual, such as planting a tree, cleaning up your environment, or even speaking up on the climate crisis. Never give up on your fight. And the future is shaped by what we do today. It is not shaped by what we dream of, but by what we do today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Hilda. A huge round of applause for Hilda and for her sharing her insights and her experience with us. Thank you so much, Hilda, for being here. We really, really appreciate your presence. We know how busy you are and how much work you have to accomplish. So the fact that you took time out of your day to be here we appreciate it so much. And I hope you can feel the love from the virtual screen. Rahil, please feel free to share about your movement and how we can support and learn from you further.
Thank you, Faiza. Now I'll be really short. I'll be just sharing some really quick with you. So as I mentioned before, TRSN is a refugee-led organization, and we work globally and at the same time locally. We act locally. I just want to share with you the 2 QR codes so you can learn more about TRSN, and also that you can contact us in case you want to learn more about the movement, and if you have a network at the local level that you want us to support. I will be just happy to, because one of the things that we evaluate as citizen is that we really need support most at the local level, and also to see if we can connect you with most of our other networking opportunity that we had, even with TRSN or other big organizations, to get more support to these education movements. And a part of TRSN, this is the QR code for the website. You can learn more about how to connect with us. And for other organizations I want to share, we also have the Global Refugee Network Green, that is a refugee-led organization, and its major focus is to support refugee leaders to speak about their issues and also to take action about them, with support of capacity building, funding, and we're looking for opportunities for them to thrive or to learn more about how to advocate about their issues. And this is an organization that we have biggest connection with, in terms of how we develop TRSNs, because we also, another thing that we notice is that if we connect directly with other refugee-led organizations, we create a bigger network, and also they can understand what are the issues or the things that we are also struggling, what gaps are we trying to cover, and in that way we complement each other. So this is also the website from Green, and in that website you can learn about other organizations that are refugee-led and youth-led, and we have support. We as Green, we have support them to 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 start their ideas. And I know that sometimes learning about other youth-led movements on the ground can also be really inspiring. So I will invite you also to go deeper and learn more about the projects that are working locally, and around the globe. And I know that there is a quote that we both use that is, refugee-led refugees are not just beneficiaries of the aid or the support, but they are actually the leaders are the ones taking the opportunity to support their communities. But we say refugee youth, but I know that all young people are the ones that are in charge of taking the issues that happen in the community or happen um in the country or at the region, and actually speaking up about it and how to change it. And nothing for us without us. Always try to support your communities, and also to if you analyze or if you identify an issue that is happening, it could be in your community, university, or even in your neighborhood, feel free to speak up, also taking the measures. And I think that will be my biggest recommendation. Always try to speak up about your communities, because if we are not the ones speaking up about ourselves as our issues, etc., there will be the delay in addressing those issues. And also if another organization or another entity try to address it, probably if we are not involved, the initiative won't be that successful as if we take action. And thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Rahil, for that. Can we have love for Rahil sharing so many insights with us today? Yes, yes. All of us here are movement builders. We all joined this call to learn how to get our movements up and running, and we've learned a lot today. Thank you so much to both Rahil and Hilda for joining us. I hope all of us took screenshots and noted down the links for both of these movements so that we can continue learning from them. Change doesn't happen in silos. It doesn't happen when you're by yourself alone in a room. When you connect with other movements, when you connect with like-minded individuals, it is easier to get the movement up and running. So thank you all for joining us today. There is a link to sign up for next week's session. It will be Wednesday, the same time, with the Must Fall movements and the Global Student Forum, two other movements we are going to continue learning from. And please share your reflections in the survey today as well. We want to learn how we can invite and connect you with more movement leaders so we can continue learning from them. Thank you once again, Rahil and Hilda. Thank you to our interpreters today as well, who have been working tirelessly throughout the hour and a half to interpret and make sure that this meeting was inclusive. Thank you all for your hard work. We will see all of you again next week, same time. Thank you all. Have a lovely morning, afternoon, evening, whatever you are in the side of the world. Sending so much love.